So today I decided to try a video. For the crack cocaine diet, I first wanted to start out mentioning the plot developments I found. I found around 35 plot developments, and I think I probably was missing a couple, but the story was very fast paced, so I wasn't sure of which ones might be considered major plot developments. So I stuck with the 35 that I found, and I want to go over those before I answer the rest of the questions. The first one is from the example that the professor gave as being the girls mentioning that they wanted to find new dresses. So that's the beginning of the story, is them wanting to get these new dresses so they looked good in front of their ex-boyfriends. And then the second plot development I found was the idea of going to the party. Like once they went to this party where they're getting the nice dresses for, they would get new boyfriends for this party. And the party was in, we'll find out, like about a week. The third plot development is that they were going to have to both lose weight in their mind because they felt that they had to look great at this party, so they wouldn't need just the dresses, but they would also need to lose weight in their mind. They weren't sure at this point how to do that because they like to eat a lot and eat a bunch of junk food and stuff. The next plot development is them talking about how they are going to, instead of trying like a regular diet such as Atkins they mentioned, or something like that, they need to find a different way. And they mention all these different ways, like taking pills and doing things, but they just don't work out. And in their mind, they realize those ways of losing weight will not work out for them. And so that's when Molly gets the idea of finding cocaine to take. The fifth plot development I find is them figuring out how are they going to get cocaine, because they are these two girls that normally wouldn't get it themselves. And so they usually would get it by like other guys getting it for them, boyfriends and stuff like that. So they have done stuff like that a few times. And anytime they did any other drugs like smoking pot, they mention a boyfriend getting those things. Number 6 is they get the idea of doing it into the city, thinking that they possibly can go to the city to get drugs. And I guess Molly knows a guy who knows someone, so they found a way to be able to connect with someone where they could get these drugs. 7 is they realize that they have to figure out how to make this a cover-up. So Molly tells her parents, that her mom, that she's going shopping, and then Kelly tells her mom that she's going for a run. So this is all covered in their idea of what they're going to be doing that night. And then 8, the plot development is Molly's friend giving directions and them ending up finding the place. So I guess there could be possibly 2 plot developments there. Molly's friends giving the direction, them actually finding the place. But I put those together because I wasn't sure if, I thought all in one, like them actually finding the place would be more important necessarily. I guess then the directions, it would be details, but maybe not the plot development. For 9, the guy talks about they find the guy finally, like I said. And 9, they are talking to the drug dealers and they're not sure how to handle things. So at that point, they're figuring out how this all works with the drug dealer. And 10 is they talk about how they're wanting to go get food because they feel like if they go get food at one of these convenience stores nearby, that then they can binge on the food before they end up having to like do the cocaine and go on their diet. So they thought like a pre-diet binge would be a good idea. So that's like 9, 10 plot development area. For 11, they start to realize that they open their package, they get their drugs from the person. They just get this package and they do the drugs. And then the next thing is they get the drugs, not do them yet. The next thing is at 11, they realize that it's kind of like funny because they realize that it's not the right stuff. Nothing's happening because they've done it a few times, and they realize that they maybe possibly have been giving crappy stuff or something like that. 12 is they feel like they've been ripped off, so then they decide to that they need to go back because they feel like it's weak stuff. They think they got completely the wrong type of stuff, like they didn't get pure cocaine or something. 13 is they realize, like I said, Molly decides to go back. She storms back to the parking lot to the drug dealer and tells them ransom raise that they gave her crap or whatever. And then the next 14, drug dealer tells them, you bought heroin, not cocaine. So they were confused because they didn't know how to buy drugs themselves. So the drug dealer tells them up front. 15, The drug dealer says he'll give an exception and that they'll give them some other drugs, like the cocaine. They'll go ahead and give them that or something like that. That they think they're going to end up getting cocaine because he says he'll give them something else. But being confused, the girls still don't know much about drugs. They don't know the blue tops from the different colors and all that. So 16, Molly gets out of the car, going towards the guy, and she's all upset again. Like I said, she said she's not going to do this stuff. And so 16, she asks, what is this? Because it's not cocaine. It's like rock candy looking. And she confronts the guy, 16, 17 area. And Molly asks for Kelly to get out of the car. And then number 17, 18 is when they go with the guy to his place. They're a little freaked out, but in the end, they both go to their house. Okay, go to his house. So with 18, they find out that Antoine lives with his grandma because his grandma's there at the house. And then they find out she's blind. So could be 18, 19, because that would be a thing. Like she can't see them and all that. So that makes sense. Wait, they don't find out she's blind right there. Oh yeah, they do find out she's blind, 18, 19. And then at 19, they start, at 18, they find out she's blind and they start smoking at 19 because they don't know how to use the pipe or anything. So Antoine helps them with that. And then before you know it, at around 20, you could say that she takes some chips off of the grandma's thing. That's kind of like a humor point. It doesn't really fully take the plot forward, but she does at 19 take some chips off the plate. Kelly does. So then 20, we would say would be 2021. Antoine and Molly are kind of connecting. They're kissing and stuff. So Kelly's kind of left alone with her grandma at this point. And then 22 is Molly and the guy Antoine actually hook up. So that's going on. And so Molly's sitting there Kelly's sitting there with the grandma. And so she's kind of confused and just like, oh, great, I'm here. And in between that, she gives other details. And a turn in the story is 23 when Kelly from the bedroom asks for, Molly from the bedroom asks Kelly to come in because it gets really quiet right before Molly asks for Kelly to come into the bedroom. So it's 23, 24. And then 25 would be Molly goes in and she notices that, they were obviously probably having sex or something like that. And at 25, Antoine is stabbed. She notices the scissors sticking out his back. So 25, 26, she could tell that Molly lied. The story just didn't really add up to her when she was explaining that he pushed himself on her and blah, blah, because she didn't have clothes on. 26, didn't believe her, like I said, but knew that she had to help her clean up. So Molly said, this is the stash house. So it seemed like, maybe she killed him on purpose to get to the stash. So that was 27, 28, and 28, 29, nodded as if agreeing that they needed to get rid of the evidence because he did have a condom on. So that's where Molly's story really didn't match up because she said that Antoine forced himself on her. So that's 28, 29. And then they leave the scene completely after they get rid of the evidence and everything. And then 29, 30, they decide to stop to pee while they're on their way home because she says she has to pee. Molly does. And so when they stop to pee, Kelly pushes Molly off of this cliff area. And they're used to this cliff area. Molly is. She knew this place because her ex-boyfriend, we find out, killed himself, jumped off the cliff at that point in high school at that same cliff. So she was very familiar with this area. So this is around plotline 30, 31. And then next we find out that as everything ties up the loose ends, she was worried at 31 and 32 they would tie the body to, they would end up tying Antoine's body to Molly in some way and figure out that it would be like a revenge killing or something. And then 32, Molly turns out to be pregnant. They find out later, in the paper. And then 33, they think Keith possibly did it. 33, 34, Keith, her ex-boyfriend, could have killed her. And then there's 35, 36. Molly's car. Okay. We find out that Molly actually was sleeping with Brandon, which is Kelly's ex-boyfriend, and so that is talked about a little bit in 35-36. Kelly has a new boyfriend, and also she buys all these new clothes and everything. So that could be, like I said, 35, 36, 37, if we're adding some of those extras. So I covered most of the plot developments, I think. Like I said, I could have missed a couple in there. But I want to answer those questions now. I said, as you can see, there's 2 to 3 plot developments per page with how many that I found. And the interesting thing is you definitely can tell that the story is very fast-paced in nature. There's still detail to it, but it's extremely fast-paced. And you asked the question of overall, when and where do things happen in the narrative? Most importantly, how does the pacing serve the story? So things happen quickly. I mean, from one thing, just wanting to go to a party, or buy a dress, find a way to buy a dress, then wanting to lose weight. So all these things come to these girls pretty quickly. And so this narrative is super fast-paced, and it takes you through, like I said, from the beginning of kind of an innocent thing of, oh, we want to buy a dress and lose weight. And then once you hit the idea of getting cocaine, it gets a little more interesting, and then it takes it from there. You know, like it snowballs into this very fast-paced story. And then the next question you asked is, most importantly, how does the pacing serve the story? Or put another way, how does pacing suit this type of story being told? I think the pacing suits the story very well. I honestly I don't dislike the story completely, but I am not used to that fast pacing, especially, I guess, like I said, I'm not that used to a lot of short stories. There are a few short story writers I really enjoy. So in this short story, it's very fast paced, and I think that may be a lot of short stories because I'm starting to learn that it's probably better to write a short story that has something to do with maybe like a one-day thing occurring. So with them, with this story, the crack cocaine diet, everything happens pretty much in one day except for like the wrap-up, obviously, of the information in the newspaper and stuff. But everything happens in one day, and sometimes maybe that serves a short story the best. And so in my second short story, I'm really trying to pay attention to that. So I feel like this type of story being told is one that is something that happens in one day, something that's, you know, kind of humorous in some ways, in a darker way. And it just serves the story well to be so fast-paced. Like, these girls are making these decisions just blah, 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 because they don't think things through fully, you know. And so I think the pacing of the story really does serve it well, to say that. And let's see, what happens between plot developments? Well, the plot developments, what happens is you do get some details, but a very interesting thing I noticed a lot is, like I said, there's a lot of dark humor in there, but she talks a lot about, like, Kelly mentioning how Molly, like, has a big ass, and kind of jokes like, oh, I'm prettier than her, but her ass is so big, so sometimes black guys like that more. And so she's just saying all these things, and through a lot of the details in between the plot developments, Kelly is really, like, you almost feel like she's not really, like, she's more jealous of Molly in some ways than actually, like, thinks of her as a friend, because obviously she ends up killing her, she says to cover up for that murder, but at the same time, is it because of her ex-boyfriend thing? So it's really like she's taking jabs in between those plot points at Molly. Like I said, for instance, the time when she talked about black guys liking, you know, bigger girls, that's why Anton ends up hooking up with her and not Kelly. And then also she mentions the one where, being at a party, her ass was so big that she put a can on it the whole night or something like that. And then mentioning at the beginning with her losing weight that Molly was going to have to lose more weight than her and all that kind of stuff. So it's just those ideas of kind of, you know, itching at, like, getting at her friend a little more, and that's through the plot developments. And then a lot of times they're talking about their ex-boyfriend, like their ex-boyfriend. At the beginning, they mention, you know, like, Brandon, Keith, everybody else in the immediate vicinity. So they're just really focused on making themselves look good to these exes. And then they mention, like, oh, technically they broke up with us, you know, but that's no big loss. Like, they say they wanted to, you know, they didn't need him anyways. And they make fun of, like, them having small penises and all this kind of stuff like that. And then as it continues, she says something where Molly begins to piss me off a little. Maybe it was just all the salt was making me feel so. How are you going to know if it's any good? So, like, through the details is just that, like, jabbing back and forth. Like I said, Kelly seems to jab more at Molly because Kelly's the one telling the story, obviously. So we see it from her point of view. So I think that's really interesting part about the story is between those plot lines. And these in-between points, it says aid in the narrator's development, even if nothing happened that directly affects the plot. Yes, it does, because the in-between moments, they don't maybe directly affect the plot in a lot of ways, but they add that dark humor, which makes the story move forward and changes kind of the tone of the story for me, because I at first was like, and like I said, it was really fast paced, so I wasn't used to that, but I ended up liking it more because of that dark humor, and kind of like I could envision these girls making all these really bad, poor decisions in one day, and that made the story better for me. And then also in the in-between moments, at the end, like I said, you find out that Kelly knew for a while probably that Kelly knew that Molly was sleeping around with Brandon, and so that adds more to it, because she mentions that she's jabbing at Kelly, and you wonder if she, even without the cocaine or even without taking any of the drugs, would she have killed her anyways, or if she had killed Antoine, would she have killed her? Maybe, possibly, maybe she had a plan the whole time or something like that, because she knew that she was sleeping with Brandon and stuff like that. So you kind of needed those middle plot points to help move the story forward and make it more interesting. For me, from this story, I'm definitely going to take, as I said, I'm learning myself. In my first story, I think I took on too much, and I wanted to tell the story that was fit more maybe for a novel or something, like all the ideas I had. And it I pushed together too much information all in one and had too many plot developments, but not in a cohesive way like the story does. So I just need to remember, maybe it would be good. That's why my next story most of it happens in a day/night period. And I think that's good for a short story, for everything to kind of just happen in one day or night, and then you can really get at the meat and the bones that way, instead of having this overreaching story that happens over weeks and whatever. I'm not saying that can't work, but since I'm new to writing short stories, I think that's good for me to start in that way, because that will help me pace better. And this story really just is one of the, like I said, the most fast-paced stories I've read in a short story format, but it does it so well. She really does a good job at, Lipman really does a good job at, getting these little things in, but not seeming like it's overwhelming. The story's overwhelming. It has a lot of plot points, but they're integral to the details of the story, and without them, the story wouldn't be what it is. So that's definitely what I would take from this, is just to remember to focus on my pace, and remembering that this is a short story that we are writing, and that it probably will help me to not be so extra worried about making, this huge story and intent, and try to focus more on little plot points and one overreaching theme of the story. So thank you for listening to my video. Sorry it got a little long, but I wanted to go through all the plot developments with you. I could have wrote them out, but I thought going through this way would be a good idea. Thank you so much.